Hello, Kelly Cougars, and welcome to your online library classroom. This week, before we get started, I just want to share how happy I was to see so many Kelly families at Kelly School to pick up library book bags to borrow. I look forward to hearing from those of you who picked up library book bags what you think about the books inside of those bags. And for those of you who weren't able to come by Kelly yet, I'd love to hear any questions that you might have about how to get those library books. This week, we are going to study something called book genres. What is a genre? I'm going to ask that you have a paper and a pencil ready during the video. If you do not have a paper and a pencil ready to go ahead, pause the video, grab those things, paper and a pencil, come back and start the video again. Go ahead and look at the picture on this first slide. Look at the book covers, look at the titles. That's your clue. What is a book genre? What do all of those books have in common? I'm going to set a timer for 2 minutes. Using the paper and the pencil, I would like for you to list as many book genres as you can think of. This is not graded. I am just curious to see how many book genres you can come up with before we go over what they are. Begin. One minute left. Ten seconds remaining. All right, your 2 minutes are up. If you're able, go ahead and take a picture of the list that you made and share it with me on Seesaw. If you're not able to take a picture, you can type your answers out on a Google document or write them out in some way on Seesaw and share them with me. So you may have guessed it by the clue of the word mysteries above all of these book covers and their titles. But the thing that all of these books have in common is that they're all mystery books. Each character has a mystery to solve and has to follow clues to figure out what the answer to the mystery is. A genre is a category or grouping according to subject matter, what the book's about, similarity, or style. Style is different than subject matter, and we'll go over style or format a little bit more in slides ahead of us. Go ahead and look at these titles of books and their book covers. Can you guess what genre they belong to? We're going to start out by talking about the difference between fiction and nonfiction books. Fiction books are books that tell a story using characters and events that are imagined by the author. These books usually have many pages, few, if any, pictures, and are divided into multiple chapters. I have an example of a fiction book that is imaginary. The title is The Door by the Staircase, written by Catherine Marsh. There is a cover picture, and there's a picture on the back cover. But as you look inside, there are very few, if any, pictures. There's our title page that has a picture, and way inside the book, on page 215, there is an illustration or a full page picture. Nonfiction books, however, are books that use facts and photographs or pictures, real pictures, to present information about a topic, such as volcanoes. See if you can find the table of contents, index, and glossary that is present in most of these books. Well, you might remember this nonfiction book from the 5-Finger Rule practice video, Rocks and Minerals. This is a DK Eyewitness book, part of a series of nonfiction books. They write books about all different kinds of real topics. Here it says, discover the story of the Earth's rocks and minerals, their creation, variety, and uses. Let's say that I'm curious about volcanic rocks. My topic's volcanoes. I'm doing a research project, and I want to know about some of the kinds of rocks created by volcanoes. But I don't need to know about all different kinds of rocks. So I'm going to open the book and go to something called the Table of Contents. In the Table of Contents, and it might be hard to see because I'm presenting a large screen and talking on the small one, there is a list here. It says Contents, and the first in the list says the Earth, which starts on page 6. Well, that's kind of really a big idea, the Earth. I just want to know about volcanoes. So I'm going to look down this list and see if I find anything about volcanoes. Oh, page 18, volcanic rocks. That's exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to open to page 18. I get to page 18, and it says volcanic rocks. I see lava exploding from a volcano and lots of different pictures of rocks. When I turn the page, I can see that it's already moving on to a new topic. If I'm still curious about what's inside the book, I can go to the back of the book to something called the index. Go to the back cover and open the book backwards. I know that seems silly, but it actually makes a lot of sense because when you get to something called the index, you can look for more specific things that might be in this book, even more detailed than the table of contents. I'm going to go to the letter V just to see what they say for things that are related to volcanoes. So volcanic ash is actually mentioned on page 15, 18, 21, and 65. So what I think is that there are other ways that volcanoes affect rocks and minerals as they grow, not just by what's created from the lava coming out of the volcano. So if I want to know more about volcanic ash, there's actually 4 pages instead of just the 2 about volcanic rocks that I can look up. Volcanic rocks actually are mentioned on page 7, 17, 18 through 19, 64, 65, and 66. That's quite a few more pages than what was mentioned in the table of contents. And volcanoes themselves, they're mentioned on pages 10, 18 through 19, page 64, and page 65. So there we find some more detailed information. I'm going to go back to the page about volcanoes, which begins on page 18. And I'm noticing as I look here, there's a couple words that I don't know. One of them is volcanic bombs. That's interesting. And here we get a little bit of a description, but I'm curious to know more. Well, something called a glossary can help. If I come across an unfamiliar word in a nonfiction book, usually, not always, but often, if you go to the back cover, open up again, you can flip through the back pages to find something called a glossary, which is like a mini dictionary for words that are in this book. So I'm going to go to the letters V again, and I find volcanic bomb right there. And it says, a blob of lava that is thrown out of a volcano and solidifies or becomes hard before hitting the ground. And I see below there's actually a second definition in the glossary for things relating to volcanoes. Volcanic vent, the central passage in a volcano through which magma flows and erupts as lava. There you have it. So if I want to use the glossary to find definitions, I go to the back cover and I open up just like with the index. Go ahead and try that with nonfiction books that you have either in your book bag from Kelly School or books that you find at home. There are also many other genres of books. Diverse books are books that celebrate LGBTQIA, people with disabilities, and people of color, and feature their unique culture, race, religion, language, abilities, identities, and traditions. Here's an example of a diverse book. The title is Dave the Potter, Artist, Poet, Slave by Laban Carrick Hill, illustrated by Brian Collier. This book has won 2 awards, a Caldecott Honor Book Award and a Coretta Scott King Book Award. This book is also a biography, which is the next section we're going to talk about. The reason this falls in the diverse category is because this book talks about a person of color, their history, and it features his unique race and cultural background and identity. This book is a biography, which means it belongs to at least 2 genres. That's right, a book can belong to more than one genre. A biography is a type of nonfiction book, a book that tells a true story of someone else's life. So Dave the Potter is a real person from American history. He was an African American slave in the United States, and this is his story. An autobiography is a special kind of biography. It's a little bit different than this one, where the author writes about their own life. So a biography is written by someone else, not the person that is the subject of the book. So this book was not written by Dave. It was written by Laban Carrick Hill. Everybody or picture books are books written for children that use pictures and words to tell a make-believe or a true story. I want to start off by saying that even though this tile indicates that everybody books are written for children, I love everybody books. As an artist, I love reading books with beautiful illustrations or beautiful works of art inside. Here's an example of an everybody book titled Fry Bread, a Native American family story. Can you guess what other genre this book fits into? If you guessed diverse, you guessed correct. This book was written by Kevin Noble Maillard and illustrated by Juana Martinez Neal. This book has won the Caldecott Honor and the Robert F. Siebert Medal. This book tells a make-believe story about a Native American family. However, when you get to the end, you can find an actual recipe of fry bread. And there it is. So even though the characters in the story are not real people, the story itself talks about a real culture and real race and heritage identities and shares a real recipe for fry bread, which is a Native American traditional food. graphic novels. A book that is in a comic format. The content is usually presented in squares and has plenty of pictures and uses talking bubbles to display thoughts. Graphic novels can be fiction or nonfiction. What makes them different is how they look and are put together. This book, The Complete Persepolis, written and illustrated by Marjorie Satrapi, is a graphic novel. And you can see by looking at this first page that all of the words are in little squares with pictures. And when people are talking, there are little bubbles by their faces, so you know who's saying what. I know many people love graphic novels because they like the format or the style of the book, the way that it looks. Beginner chapter book. I right now do not have a great example at home of a beginner chapter book. However, I can tell you that they are simple, short stories divided into multiple sections called chapters, just like these longer, I will go back to this book, The Door by the Staircase, divided into chapters just like this. But they're much shorter, and these stories usually include more pictures and are designed to help you build reading stamina. Just like when you're running and you get tired, you want to push yourself a little bit to become stronger, and we do that as readers too. That's why when we practice the 5-finger rule, we want to have at least 2 or 3 words on a page that we don't know so that we can build our vocabulary, build our reading stamina. And last on this page, world language, a book that is written in another language or a bilingual book written in 2 languages. Most of the time you'll see English on one side and the other language on the other. Well, half of our school is a Russian immersion program, so we have a large selection compared to other elementary schools of books in different languages, particularly Russian, and we also have a collection of Spanish, and Vietnamese, and a few Chinese books. The book that I have here is a bilingual book. It is written in Russian and English. The title is The Elves and the Shoemaker. It might be hard to see the Russian title. I do not speak Russian, so I cannot pronounce this title in Russian. But I'll show you what the pages look like. And it might be a little bit hard to see again on this tiny screen, but what you'll see first is a paragraph written in Russian, and then right underneath the same paragraph written in English. We're going to go over some other types of genres, and there are so many. These are not all of them. I'm just listing some. Dystopian. These can be kind of scary. All your bad dreams and worst fears brought to life, but the characters just might come out okay, or not, in these books. Can you think of a dystopian book that you've read? Adventure. Go on a journey, a quest. Be prepared for action and obstacles or challenges. Have you read an adventure book before? Fantasy. Frolic with magical creatures, places, and events in these books. How many of you have read a fantasy book? Explore far-out worlds and consider imagined technology in other time periods. Science fiction. I know a lot of comic books have science fiction elements or technology that doesn't exist yet. What is your favorite book genre? Do you have more than one? Are there genres that you have not read before? Think about it. Mystery. Unravel secrets and solve crimes in these books. Predict the unknown. Look for clues in the text. Have you read a mystery book before? Read about the land in nature books, weather, and animals around you as well. Consider how the environment impacts us and how we impact it. Nature books can be nonfiction, but they can also be fiction too. We think about the book Wish Tree. I know that I read a lot of that book last year to Kelly's students in 4th and 5th grade. It was a fiction book about a tree that actually talked with the animals. However, the characters, the people in the story, had to make a decision about cutting that tree down. I don't want to give away the ending for those of you who haven't read it yet, but it asks us to think about some tough questions about nature and the way people treat nature. Historical fiction. Travel to events and time periods in the past. Look for both fact and opinion in these books. The Magic Treehouse series are a good example of historical fiction, where the characters use a time machine to go back to certain periods in our history. A lot of the information about that time period in those stories are facts. They are facts about our history, but of course the time travel and the characters are make-believe. So you'll find a little bit of both in these historical fiction books. Silliness and laughter await you in books that are humorous. There are lots of funny books out there. And as far as everybody funny books, I love reading Mo Willems. I think he's hilarious. Books that make you laugh out loud. Have you read a silly, humorous book? Try something called a book sampling. Read 5% or one chapter of a book. Can you tell what genre it belongs to? Or multiple genres? Do you like the start of the book? Why or why not? This activity is designed to get you in the habit of sampling books. Just because you start a book doesn't mean that you have to finish it unless it's a homework assignment for another teacher. When it comes to reading for fun or reading on your own, you get to decide if you're enjoying that book. The important thing is that you're sampling or trying out a lot of different books and finding one that works for you. Some people call that a home run book. That's a sports term for when somebody in baseball makes it past all of the bases and scores a point. However, when it comes to reading, once you find that book that you really love, that you really get into, that's the book you want to finish. And then the sampling can take a break. But that's the point of book sampling, finding those home run books. Sports books. There's a lot of fiction books that are in different sports scenarios. The characters play sports or big sporting events are taking place. These books feature physical activity and the lesson it teaches us. There are lessons that the characters learn about life while playing sports. Ooh, scary stories. Chills and thrills will jump out at you in these books. Some people don't like to be scared. Other people do. So if you're someone that likes scary books, then you might have noticed the second grouping of book covers and titles on slide 3. Those were all scary stories. Local author. This is interesting because it's more about who writes the book than what is happening inside. But these are books who are written by people born in Oregon or who have lived here. Can you think of any books written by local authors? Do you know an author? Award winner. These are books voted on by teachers and librarians and also kids. There's Kids' Choice Awards too for books as being extra, excellent, and unique. One of the books that I showed you, Fry Bread, and Dave the Potter have won book awards. Last but not least, complete this Google form this week. This is your main activity. I want to know more about your reading interests. You can find a link to this attached to the Seesaw assignment, but before ending this video, I'd like to go over the questions with you. So you're going to open this survey. This is for grades 4 and 5, and you're going to tell me by clicking what grade you're in, 4th grade or 5th grade. And then the next question asks, how does reading make you feel? Good, okay, not good. Please click one. And then tell me why. Explain why reading makes you feel good, okay, or not good below. Next question. I know the 5-finger rule for picking a good fit book. These questions do not have right or wrong answers. I just want to know more about you. So click yes if you have practiced and you understand how it works. Click no if you would like to learn more or have more lessons practicing the 5-finger rule. Next question. What's your favorite way to read? By yourself, with a reading partner, or listening to someone read? Favorite style or format of a book? Everybody and picture books, chapter books, graphic novel, novel series, reference or encyclopedia. And don't forget, that nonfiction book I showed you, this is kind of like an encyclopedia. It's about one topic. How-to books. We didn't talk too much about those, but how-to books teach you how to do something. This book is called 1, 2, 3 Draw Pets and Farm Animals, a step-by-step guide by Freddie Levin. And inside, you'll see the different steps on how to learn to draw a cartoon cow. If you were at Kelly last year, you might remember practicing how to draw cats with the Ames books. If you fill in other, please explain your favorite style or format of a book below. And your favorite reading genre. I put a couple on here. Mystery, fantasy, realistic fiction, so I put a sports player here, but it could be anything realistic. That it's made believe, it's makeup, but it could be real. There's no magical elements. Historical fiction. Do you like to read things that took place in the past? Is that your favorite? Science fiction series. Do you really like to read books that are in a series? Like the Magic Tree House? I think there's got to be at least 40 books in that series. 40 different ones. Do you like poetry? We didn't talk too much about poetry, but we did talk about Dave the Potter, who did write poetry on his clay pots. You might remember this book from last year, Wet Cement, a Mix of Concrete Poems by Bob Rexaka. Do you like to read books about poetry? Or Shel Silverstein, Where the Sidewalk Ends? That's one we read together. Or how-to books. How-to books can teach you how to make art, but this one, Words, Wit, and Wonder, writing your own poem, actually teaches you how to write a poem. So it's not just about art. I used an art picture, but there's lots of different how-to books, and that includes cookbooks. If you filled in other, please explain your favorite type of book to read below, right here. Type in your answer. And then you can click this if you want a copy of your answer sent to your email, and then you press the submit button. Mine didn't submit because I didn't fill out all of the questions. So you will have to fill out all of the questions to submit your reading survey this week. So I look forward to seeing your list of book genres that you came up with at the beginning of the video and this reading survey completed and finished this week. And you can look ahead and start thinking about books, getting books ready to sample. We will be doing book sampling going forward. Well, that's all for today. Until next time, Kelly Cougars.